Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. And Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's the Tammi Mac Show on Fox. So, Tammi Mac, Tammi Mac, yeah. Who that? Tammi Mac, hey. So you know it's Tammi Mac, hey. Tammi Mac.
Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Hello, everybody. I'm Tammi Mac. Tonight, we're talking about Washington, D.C. potentially becoming the 51st state in the nation. Y'all laughing about that already? What? The fatal shooting of 7-year-old Jaslyn Adams. O.J. Simpson's thoughts on a popular athlete's now deleted tweet, and why Nike and Kobe Bryant's estate could part ways. Well, it's Friday, and that means it's time for another round of the political and trending highlights of the week. Of course, with my Friday faves, please welcome my Friday co-host, the co-founder of the Anti-Racism Kentucky Coalition, Dr. O.J.O. Lakers in the house.
Hey, Tammi Mac.
Comedian and filmmaker Alicia Cooper is here.
Hey, Tammy.
What a delay, my sis. You know, we can't be delaying on Fridays. We need every minute counts. Activist and radio personality Dominique DePrima is here.
What's up, Tammy?
And political analyst Ed Sanders in for the kill tonight. Hi, Ed, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Let's start off with this. The House approved legislation to give Washington, D.C. statehood, which would make it the 51st state in the nation. The bill will now go to the Senate for another round of votes. It would establish the state of Washington, Douglas Commonwealth, named after abolitionist Frederick Douglass. Washington, D.C. will receive 2 senators and voting rights in the House. It would also become the first state with a plurality Black population. I have to admit, I don't know what that word was.
It's Chocolate City, Tammy. That's
right. That's what I figured. Deductive reasoning there. Is this legislation long overdue?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a start towards balancing the representation in the Senate, right? I think we've talked about it in the past where there are several states in the Midwest and Pacific Northwest that have very small populations and carry 2 senators. But from a constitutional standpoint, Washington, D.C. has a population that hasn't been represented in Congress. They don't have a voting bloc. I think it is appropriate for D.C. statehood to move forward. Plus, go-go can be the state music.
And those small states have a plurality of white voters, just for the record.
Okay, all right. Well, keep going then, Dominique.
Well, so that means that Black voters are actually underrepresented in the Senate significantly. So the DC statehood would give a more fair representation of Black people in the Senate. And that's what what Ed was explaining is that we are not well represented because you get 2 senators per state, no matter how many people are in the state and no matter who's in the state. And so this would give Black people a little bit more representation in the Senate. Of course, Republicans are having a major fit, because that means that Democrats would have a solid majority in the Senate.
Oh, yeah, that could twist this whole world around. In the words of Sojourner Truth, we turn this world all upside down again. Dr. Oleka.
Well, I mean, I think it's clear that Democrats are pushing this because it benefits them politically. I mean, when they had 60 votes and the House of Representatives and a Black president, they didn't push this at all, which tells you exactly why they're doing it now, because they do want those extra 2 votes in the Senate. Look, I think absolutely that the people in D.C. should have representation. I think you can do it a different way. You can do it the way that it originally was. The people in D.C. Were part of either Maryland or Virginia, and they had voting rights then. They had full participation, whether they were Black. Well, I guess actually they were Black. They didn't have votes because this was in the 1800s.
Yeah, the way it originally was, we were 3/5 of a person. I don't think
that's
we want
true.
to go to
So
that.
you can remix the original and actually have folks who could have representation if you ceded that land back to Maryland or Virginia. The challenge right now with the particular piece of legislation in D.C. in Congress is that it still allows the 23rd Amendment to exist. You have to obviously go through the amendment process to but not to be too boring, effectively, it would allow the residents of DC in the new capital area, which would only be the people who live in the White House, which is the president, to have access to those 3 presidential electoral votes. So it creates this weird, absurd kind of workaround, which you really could fix if you just ceded that land back to Virginia or Maryland.
But DC doesn't want to be part of Virginia or Maryland. They want to be their own state, and I think they have a right to do so.
Again, it would be challenging constitutionally to make that happen. And I also don't think that this is something that the Democrats really care about with regard to representation, is that they want power. Again, I take you back to 2009.
Really don't care about it when it comes to representation. They
in
just
2009, the Democrats had the White House, they had 60 votes in the Senate, and they also had a majority in the House of Representatives. If they truly believed that DC statehood was something that they believed in, they could have done it then pretty easily.
Maybe President Barack Obama thought healthcare for all Americans was more important than DC statehood. I mean, there's always a long to-do list, and you got to prioritize.
Well, Alicia, how you feeling about this?
Yeah, I mean, both of my parents,
if you will.
Yes, both of my parents are from DC. I grew up in Maryland. We've been fighting for statehood for as long as I can remember. I hope it could go that way. Republicans are not trying to give up power, and we don't know if all the Democrats are going to vote for, because we have a few dinos in there anyway. So I would love to see statehood. DC has a bunch of money. They make so much money off of railroading people off those camera tickets. I mean, they need to be a state. Like, they have a ton of money. You can't even get through DC without foof, foof, foof. That thing is just going. They got my father in a funeral procession. I said, damn, y'all greedy as hell. He was stuck in between. Boom. I said, oh, Lord, they will get your ass. Then they added, if your car is in the crosswalk and the light turns red, boom, boom. So they got some money. You might as well make a mistake, because they sitting over there like some fat cats, but we'll see if it happens in the end.
GOP Senator John Kennedy thought he could play with fire and not get burned. Kennedy thought that he could trip up former state Senator Stacey Abrams with a question about her own state's new voter suppression law, but he got schooled. Check it out.
You're against the Georgia bill, I gather. Is that right?
I'm against certain provisions of it, yes.
Okay, and I think you've called it a racist bill. Am I right?
I think there are provisions of it that are racist, yes.
Okay. Tell me specifically, just give me a list of the provisions that you objected.
It shortens the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks.
Okay.
It restricts the time a voter can request and return an absentee ballot application.
What else? What else?
It eliminates over 300 hours of Dropbox availability.
Okay, what else?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Is that everything?
No, it is not. No, sir. It restricts the hours of operation for counties that may be may not want to see expanded access to the right to vote. They can now limit their hours. Instead of those hours being from 7 to 7, they're now from 9 to 5, which may have an effect on voters who cannot vote during business hours during early voting. It limits the voting
Okay, I
hours.
get the idea. I get the idea.
I don't think you do.
Oh, that was
I'm
dumb.
gonna give this one to you.
Look, I learned a long time ago that you don't debate black women one-on-one and ask them questions you don't know the answers to. It was very clear that this brother did not read the bill, and he had no idea what she was about to come at him with. I mean, look, there are ways you can defend it. There are ways you can respond to what she was saying, but he didn't read the bill, and he must not have known who she was. So he's just going to have to take that L by himself on that one.
Do you think he knew what the bill was or who she was, Alicia?
No, and he's messing up the Kennedy name. And his accent was so thick. When I first heard, I thought he said, "You're a gangster bill." Because he's like, "You're a gangster bill." I said, "What a gangster boogie with my gangster bill." I didn't know what this man was. He said, "Oh, you're against the bill." I didn't know what the hell this country fool said. But at the end of the day, why are you going to... What you say?
I'm from the South, and I thought he said a gangster bill.
I thought he was rapping. I was like, "Who got a gangster bill?" But that just craziness. But I mean, obviously he didn't know that Stacey Abrams is not the one. The Nobel Peace Prize nominee, the attorney, the one. I give him 3 words. He tried it. but he certainly did not succeed. He looked like a complete idiot, and she made light work of him, and she just did it so easily. I mean, this was child's play for Stacey.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was, and you guys can remind me, that said, I think it was Senator Ted Cruz that asked Stacey Abrams, was she still bitter from her governor's loss? And I was thinking, no, she's still bitter from when when she was in high school, she went or was invited to the governor's mansion and was turned away. So y'all think y'all fighting like a recent battle with Stacey Abrams? Y'all better think again. She mad since high school. High school. Y'all been dissing her in the governor's office since high school. Ed.
It's incredible, but it shows how callous and how just straightforward the Republicans are in terms of trying to get African Americans not to be able to vote. And the law in Georgia is one of several across the country that we've talked about that Republicans are pushing through state legislatures that try to restrict the ability of people to vote, change the rules around it, all of it with the intent that not to expand the electorate, but to shrink it. It's really shocking to see a senator step up there and ask the question to probably the foremost spokesperson for the voter enfranchisement and get served the way he did. But not surprisingly, this is a bill that's born of evil, and when brought to the light, Stacey showed.
Dominique?
Well, it shows you how racist they are, because they think we're dumb. Like, what did he think was going to happen? She's going to be, oh no, Senator, I have no idea what's in the bill. Give me a break. That's Stacey Abrams. You know what I'm saying? Like, what did he think was going to happen? That to me doesn't just show the problem with the bill. It shows the problem with the mentality of many of those gentlemen in the Senate who like to invoke the filibuster and bat down every single thing we try to do. We all know she should be the governor right now.
Yeah, certainly. Go ahead, Dr. Oleka.
We'll say, we are conflating two things, and I think it's important that we differentiate them. It's clear that Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana did not read the Georgia bill. That's very obvious. It's clear that Stacey Abrams did, and she has a particular opinion on it. However, to wholesale say that Republicans are racist and trying to remove Black people from voting based on the Georgia bill is just simply not true. Can you give me a
list of ways in which Republicans are not racist, Dr. Oleka?
Yes, I can give you a ton of ways.
Because I sure haven't seen it lately.
Yes, I can give you a ton of ways. The fact, again, that we went after the Black vote specifically in 2020, the fact that we elevate Black leaders.
You kind of had to do that, Dr. Oleka.
What'd you say, Tammy?
And by going after, you mean trying to trick us on Facebook and using bots and lies?
No, I mean reaching out to Black voters who were open to the Republican Party ideals. But again, this goes back to this talking point that Republicans somehow, by definition, are racist. You look at this Georgia bill, based on what was written into the letter of the law in 2018, this bill does expand voting opportunities. Now, where the question becomes, and I think this is where the narrative changes, we look at 2020. And this is the honest way to have the conversation.
It's not
the
honest.
pandemic election,
It's dishonest.
the voting opportunities were expanded in 2020. That's where you had the expansion of mail drop-off voting locations. That's when you had the opportunity for no excuse absentee voting, things that Georgia hadn't done before. But that wasn't written into the law. So what the new law does is it expands upon 2018, that election and what was written into the law, but it does restrict based on 2020. That's the honest way to have the conversation. It doesn't mean that the bill is racist. It doesn't mean that Republicans are trying to restrict Black voters. That's just a talking point for the Democrats. It makes sense why they'd say that, but it's simply not true.
Well, listen, whether it's true or not true, Stacey Abrams, certainly if you better recognize was a person, she was that person on that day. We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi McLeod Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi McLeod Show on Fox Soul, where the business of being Black tonight is recapping the entire week with Dr. O.J. Oleka, Dominique DePrima, Ed Sanders, and Alicia Cooper. So the White House has, hold on one second. The White House has written off the Johnson & Johnson vaccine after a string of production failures. The chaos has disappointed Joe Biden's team, of course, who once argued that the company's one-dose vaccine would be central to turning the tide of this pandemic. Will people be more hesitant to take the Johnson and Johnson vaccine if it goes back into production? Who's going to take that one? Nobody want to talk about the vaccine.
Well, I think they will.
I mean, I think people will. I thought they made a mistake by pausing it in the first place. The statistical danger was so low that I thought they still had an ability to try to figure out what it was without pausing it and causing this causing this public relations nightmare in the first place. It's unfortunate. I mean, Johnson and Johnson is a U.S. company compared to Pfizer, Moderna, and so you hate to see that the American product is suffering from sort of the bad reputation, but I think folks will continue to take it if put back into circulation.
Mm-hmm. Dominique, go ahead.
I think people will take it. I think people honestly will either forget, quite frankly, that the vaccine was that bad over time, and also based on the statistics that they looked at, it was a particular population. Women between the ages of, I think, 18 and maybe 50, around that range.
Yeah.
So if you are a male or if you are a female outside of that range, then potentially you could still take it. So I assume that's what's going to happen. But again, I think everybody should be cautious, and if they choose not to, that's certainly their choice.
Yeah, and they said that they supposedly they did put it back into circulation because they said that the benefits outweigh the risk. And they said out of 7 million shots, 15 people had the blood clot issue and 3 deaths. So they are putting it back into circulation because of those numbers. They think that the benefits are still better.
Yeah, it's going back into circulation. I do think people will be scared of it because a lot of people are looking for any small shred of evidence against any vaccine. And there's a lot of hesitancy overall, not just in Black communities, actually with a lot of Republicans. So I think some people will hesitate, but I think it's good that they put it back in circulation. I agree with Ed. Statistically, it was so small. I don't know that they should have pulled it, especially since it does just take the one shot and it doesn't need the refrigeration, which means for many of these, poor countries that don't have those infrastructure and facility, requirements for the other shots, they'll be able to deliver this vaccine. And that's going to be important to get herd immunity worldwide.
We are going into the chat room now. Let's see here. Incog says Dominique and Alicia looking all fly in the hair department.
Thank you.
Kudos.
Thank you.
Somebody please wake Dr. OJ up. He's clearly dreaming. Levi Sanders, new to the chat room. Hi, Levi. Created in your image to speak on your behalf. We used to call them shea butters. Look like you and talk like I have no idea what that chat means. The only thing I can think in my head is a song by Ari Lennox called Shea Butter. Shea Butter Baby. I have no idea. Let's move on here to a group of historical Black colleges and universities will require students and faculty to be fully vaccinated before returning to school. The Atlanta University Center Consortium will require 3 Black colleges and universities, Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta University, as well as the Morehouse School of Medicine and the AUC Robert W. Woodruff Library to be fully vaccinated at the beginning of the upcoming semester. Will this be an issue for people who object to getting the vaccination because of their religious or medical reasons? How are we looking at this?
I think it's problematic. I mean, I know that they can do it once the FDA gives final approval. You can't force someone to take a vaccine that is only approved for emergency use. Once it is approved, I know the UC system in California and the state university system are both planning to require this, but I think it's problematic since when do you have to have vaccinations to go to college? I know for elementary and high school, it's been necessary. I think a lot of people are going to have a problem with this.
Yeah, I think Dominique is right. I mean, this is an area where I work in Kentucky. I work in higher education. This is a hot topic. A lot of institutions are thinking about how best to do this. A lot of this is going to come down to what states have within their state policy on what colleges and universities are able to do. I haven't read these specific policies, but you're going to have carve-outs for religious exemptions and medical exemptions in particular. If you don't, this is just going to go to court and it's going to get challenged. So hopefully they're doing this the right way. I mean, these HBCUs are pretty strong institutions, so I'm sure they have great legal and academic teams. But if they just have a blanket, you have to get a vaccine, they're going to run into some legal challenges with that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is heartbreaking news. 7-year-old Jasleen Adams was gunned down and killed while she was sitting in a car with her father at Chicago McDonald's drive-through. Her father survived the shooting and remains hospitalized in serious condition. Um, Safari took the opportunity to call out gun violence in the Black community and ask about accountability while comparing this shooting to recent police shootings that have garnered national attention. He tweeted, 7-year-old shot and killed, and it wasn't by a police officer. So what's the next step? Who do we hold accountable? Or do we pick and choose when we stand together? Disgusting. What are your thoughts about Safari's words about Black on Black crime and accountability when it does not involve police brutality? Dominique, I know you have some feelings on that.
Please don't use that phrase, Black on Black crime. It's, unless you're going to say white on white crime every time white people kill each other or kill everybody in these mass shootings, and you're going to say brown on brown crime and Asian on Asian crime, yellow on yellow crime. That is pathologizing something that happens in every community. People murder the people, sadly, that are close to them. Now, I think Safari has a point in that we have a national epidemic of gun violence right now. And it's not just in the Black community. You could blame it on the pandemic crazy. You could blame it on the economic pressure. I don't know if anybody really knows why, but every single state has seen a spike in gun violence in the past year. What do we do about it? We're going to have to take some measures in our communities to mitigate these mental health, these financial pressures, whatever the root causes of. But that's a separate issue. And to try to compare apples and oranges, police shootings with actual crime, it's stupid, because police are not held to the same standards as criminals. They are actually the law. So it doesn't make any sense to compare them with criminals.
Yeah, I never understand the comparison, because police should be held to a higher standard, number one. Therefore, they should be held to a higher standard of accountability. And honestly, when a Black person kills another Black person, or when a white person kills a white person, whoever that murderer is, typically is held accountable in some form or fashion. And so I think as a whole, we're talking about police accountability when they kill Black people. There is none. But when we talk about regular citizens killing regular citizens, oftentimes there is accountability. So I never understand why people are confused what the demand is or what the concern is about. Ed, you want to go ahead on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating, and I think you lay out the reasons why. I mean, I think all of us can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can deal with several issues at one point. What he's doing is sort of this whataboutism, and it's frustrating in a way. We can deal with police accountability, and we can talk about homicides within the community, and we don't need to compare them. Comparing them is what the conservative movement does to deflect from the issue of police accountability. And either he is trying to deflect from police accountability, or he is just sort of taking the bait. And, I hope he's in the future a little more thoughtful about what he tries to say.
Dr. Oleka.
Well, I actually agree with the way Dominique laid this out. I think there is a danger in this pathology of criminality in the Black community in saying things like Black on Black crime. I mean, she's exactly right. It is intra-community violence. You commit crimes around the people and to the people that you live closest to. The challenge, obviously, that a lot of Black folks have to deal with is that there is an overlay between poverty and race, which typically harms our community more than others. And when you have high populations in urban centers, then again, we're almost quite literally on top of one another. So the opportunity for that violence persists. But they're two different things. You can be upset about intra-community violence, whether it happens in rural Kentucky, the Mississippi Delta, or in an urban area. You can also be upset about police violence. When I try to explain this to people, conservatives in particular, the police officer is an agent of the government. You would not want an agent of the government creating and committing violence upon you and in your community. So you shouldn't want it in any aspect. So these are two different things. We should be upset about both of them. And a lot of these communities are. They have marches, they have walks for police brutality, and they have marches and walks for community violence. So you can do both, and these communities do.
Thank you for saying that, Dr. Oleka. Alicia, did you want to tap in?
Yeah, I think that it's sad that some people have the perception that Black people only care when it's somebody white killing us. That's not the truth. We care regardless of who's killing us. I don't know, maybe it doesn't seem that way with, Black Lives Matter marching about the things that state sponsored and people in positions of power do. There's still a lot of organizations that march for things that happen Black on Black. And it's sad that we even have to talk about this because, like Dominique said, everybody kills. Crime is proximity crimes.
Well, I
So
like how
people tend
Dr.
to kill.
Olega phrased it as community violence.
Community violence, yeah.
wanna
And it doesn't
just
matter
say
what
really
community
quickly,
that you're
though,
in.
I don't want to lose sight of Jaslyn, though. I mean, that is
Right.
incredibly sad, and we have to protect our babies. We have to.
Yes. And I don't even know if they found the person who killed Jaslyn.
I don't have the information on that yet. So perhaps we're waiting on it to come in. And while we wait, we're going to take a commercial break on the Tammi Mack Late Show. Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. Alicia posed the question if they had found the killer of Jaslyn Adams, and Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said at a news conference that officers shot the suspect following a vehicle pursuit crash and attempted carjacking, and he confirmed that the individual was wanted in connection to the slaying of Jaslyn Adams. So they do believe they have found the person that shot and killed the little girl. Let's move on to yet another little girl. On Tuesday, 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant was fatally shot by an officer outside of her home after she called the police for help in Columbus, Ohio. Columbus police released the video that detailed the fatal encounter. Take a look. In the footage, it appears that she attempted to stab two teenage girls before she was shot multiple times. She was transported to the Mount Carmel East Hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. Is this police shooting justifiable? And I want to preface this with saying, I don't even want to say. So I'm interested in knowing what you all have to say. Go for it, Alicia.
From the looks of things, it was because we saw her swinging the knife. We saw her try to get the one girl who hit the ground, and some man kicked her in the head. And then we saw her with the knife up high going towards the girl, and the girl lifting one leg up. And then even after that, there was some additional footage where the girl in pink was being put in the back of a squad car, and she said, "He saved my life. She was about to kill me." Right there. Already lets you know he's not going to be charged. The girl in pink said he saved her life. So I want to know why there had to be 4 shots. Even if you felt like you had to take action right then and there because it's a split-second decision you feel like you have to make, I want to know why the 4 shots. Because I mean, I don't
believe that there is enough information out on this particular situation yet, because from what I'd read also, these girls have been coming to this young lady's house for quite some time. So I just don't think there's enough detail in it to justify the shooting or not. Dominique?
Well, I don't think it's justified. I understand what you're saying, and I actually have been arguing with a friend of mine who's an officer about this all day, because and how is it that you can take Kyle Rittenhouse into custody while he's carrying an automatic weapon and he just killed some people, but you can't take down a 16-year-old girl with a small steak knife? To me, there's got to be another way. I don't know. I'm not a trained officer. There's got to be a taser. There's got to be a baton. There's got to be something you can do. And he shot so quickly. It was like, roll up, kill, and then ask questions. She's the one who called the police. I have read reports that at least one of those people in that altercation was an adult. I had read reports that they had been bullying or harassing her, and she was the one seeking help. And this is why, this is a perfect illustration of why Black people in America don't feel safe, most of us, Dr. Olega, with the police, because you call for help and one of your loved ones or yourself ends up dead. I feel like if this was a white person, they would still be alive.
Speaking of if this was a white person, let's see what would have happened if this were a white person. Video, please.
Get down! Get down! Get down!
Officers taking in a man, a white male, while he's trying to stab an officer. And we're talking about a grown-ass man. This is not a 16-year-old girl. And the officers did not kill him. Dr. Olega.
The challenge with this, and I'm going to say something I think is probably unpopular, but the reality of the situation is that each incident with a police officer and with somebody who could be committing a crime or could be considered dangerous is different. This is the objective way to look at the issue. Each officer is different. If you had a different set of officers with this young woman, she might still be alive. Now, here's the reality. The reality is that Black people in our country don't always get the benefit of the doubt. We don't always get the objective opportunity. We don't always get fairness. And so when you see these two situations side by side, it becomes very easy to say, well, if she just would have looked like him, this white man, she would have been fine. We don't know that, but we also can't say and prove anything differently. This is the challenge with police officers and policing with our particular community, but it's also the difficulty of why police officers have such a hard job. They'll get calls wrong, but they'll get very difficult calls right. And until we know all the information, it's hard to say one way or the other, but it's certainly painful to be Black in this country and see another one of us killed by a police officer.
Ed.
Yeah, I begrudgingly, I agree with you, Dr. Olake. I do think you have to look at each of these incidences individually. But where I think I differ is as you pull back and look at the forest, I think you do see trends. And one of the trends that's alarming is and consistently so, is that officers tend to use lethal force on African Americans quicker. And that's why the juxtaposition of the two episodes, to your point, is it if the girls on the yard had been white, would the same officer have jumped out of the car and fired off 4 shots? That impulse to fire off 4 shots, the way that you view the suspect or victim, or however you describe the person that's being fired upon, that instinctual feeling on how you deal with them, I think is what everyone is calling into question. And what seems to be is that officers are very quick to use lethal force with African Americans in this country.
Alicia.
Yeah. Well, I went first on this one, and I completely agree with everything Ed said. And we got to remember, with white cops, they see their relatives and other white assailants. You know, they can look at this guy and say, he reminds me of my cousin Jethro. She reminds me of my aunt Cindy. Yeah. They don't get the same 4 shots in the chest like we do. We don't remind them of nothing good.
Ooh, okay. So many celebrities took to social media to voice their thoughts on this shooting. LeBron James tweeting, "You're next," #accountability, with an hourglass emoji and a picture of the officer who shot Ma'Khia Bryant. LeBron has since deleted that tweet. However, people were divided over LeBron's deleted post. Check out what O.J. Simpson had to say.
It's a war that must be fought, but sometimes you need to take your time and be a little more patient before you comment on some of these bad incidences that are happening with police departments. This one, LeBron should have waited.
Okay, can I take this one, y'all? The most infamous words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Wait has almost always meant never. Justice too long delayed is justice denied. O.J. Simpson needs to shut his ass up and sit down with his how to get away with murder ass. He needs to take it to Benihana's and sharpen some knives around this piece, because ain't nobody wanted to hear from O.J. Simpson since he was a running back. Now he's sitting in his backyard running his damn mouth. This the same O.J. Simpson that said, "I'm not black, I'm O.J." Okay, but needed the whole black community to support him when he was on trial for murder, and couldn't sit his ass down when he got off. Had to go and fight for his paraphernalia. And then got some time for that. LeBron James out here fighting for his people, and O.J. Simpson fighting for his paraphernalia. We knew his ass was selfish and could care less about black folk when Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar formed alliances for social media, and O.J. was like, "Nah, I'm good." LeBron James got schools for black people, voting initiatives, he getting protesters out of jail, Meanwhile, OJ Simpson got the nerve to tell somebody when to talk and when to fight some battles. Ain't nobody tell OJ when to fight his battles when he was beating up his wife. The last person on earth, Black people need to hear from right now is the only Black man in America who has been protected by the police from almost every crime he has ever committed. How dare you tell LeBron he can't solve every problem? You couldn't make every touchdown, but you tried. So, Mr. Simpson, if you ain't trying to speak out on LeBron's behalf to find out how you can help with social justice change, just sit your little ass quietly in your I got away with murder corner and shut it up. Go to a Klans meeting and talk tactics because we don't need your help. We good. I don't even know why they call you Juice. Because what you really serving up is clam chowder, potato salad with raisins, and unseasoned ass chicken on an eggshell painted lanai. Orenthal James Simpson, sit your Black ass down. Yeah. Black.
I get, yeah, I felt Black. Every piece of that message.
Tammi. I'm sorry. Did my panelists have anything to say, or can we go?
I think we move on.
Yeah, I would want to say something.
You know
what? I'd like to say something. I wasn't even upset with LeBron because LeBron was going off the information that he had. Who I'm upset with is the media who will rush to get a story out and don't have half the facts. When I first heard that story, they said a teenager was unarmed and was shot for no reason. And they're doing it again because they, right on the day of the verdict for Chauvin. So I'm at home mad. Like, they just shot this unarmed girl for no reason. They said, yeah, her family said she didn't have anything. And I'm sure LeBron heard the same thing. When you hear that an unarmed person was killed and all they showed was her feet in the ground and everybody screaming, it's going to hype you up at home. So he did what any normal person would do with giving the wrong information from the media. And I think we all need to be more responsible when we start putting anything out and don't have half the facts. The media should not have reported on
information, Alicia. And a lot of people think that she shouldn't have been killed, me among them. He didn't say he had the wrong information. He said he took the tweet down because it was being used to spread more hate, and he didn't want to spread more hate. That's what he said.
Yeah, that is what he said. But I'm
definitely on the side of I don't think she should have been killed. But I absolutely think that the whole situation is simply sad, and that OJ Simpson needs to sit his ass down. We're gonna take a commercial break. Come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, and welcome my Friday panelist, Dominique DePrima, radio personality. Dr. O.J. Oleka is here running that Kentucky Coalition on racism. I'm assuming racism, right, Dr. Oleka? Yeah, that's what y'all do.
Anti-racism. To run a coalition on racism would be pretty bad.
Alicia Cooper, comedian and filmmaker. And we've also got political analyst Ed Sanders here. Thank you all for being here every Friday with me to make my weekend feel just right. So next week, former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger is appealing her 10-year sentence for killing Botham Jean in 2018. Amber was found guilty of shooting and killing Botham after she got off the elevator on the wrong floor, walked into Botham's apartment, and mistook him for an intruder. Geiger will sit in front of a 3-judge panel to dispute her conviction of murder to a lesser offense, should she serve the full 10-year sentence.
I think so, but I mean, let's just say that I think there's a couple things here. Should she serve the full 10 years on the sentence that she was originally? Yes, of course. Should the panel grant, lessening the conviction to a lighter crime? No, I don't think so either. I'm of the mindset, that the punishment fit the crime. I actually thought it could have gone a little tougher on her, but no. I hope that sentence stands.
Well, I would imagine that anytime the judge hugs you and the family hugs you and the security guard hugs you and everybody's giving you big fat hugs, you probably gonna get that lesser offense on appeal. Alicia?
I hope she doesn't get it. It'd be nice if they could tack a couple more years on her even trying that mess. That's absolutely ridiculous. And everybody, some they hugging her and all this stuff. That was absolutely ridiculous. As somebody said in one of the videos afterwards, it was a girl, she posted it. She was so angry about those hugs. She said, if I die and you see any of my brothers and sisters hugging my killer, that MF will set me up. Nobody should be hugging your killer, especially not at the damn trial. I don't think ever, but definitely not at the trial. And I hope she does not get any lesser time. They gave her too light of a sentence to begin with for going into somebody's living room and shooting them dead. That's insulting. That's insulting. Even to appeal it is an insult.
Yeah, it's becoming a little bit ridiculous that every time these Black people getting killed by these white people, it's almost like, oh, it was just a mistake. Like, how? Dominique.
Yeah, I thought it was my taser. Thought it was my apartment. Yeah, I think no. And I think the timing is bad because, we've just had the conviction in the Derek Chauvin case. And we do have this Lori Potter incident where she said she mistook her gun for a taser. And that's top of mind for people. We don't know that she'll get the same judge, do we? So I don't know that she's going to get a lighter sentence, nor should she. We see what happened with Oscar Grant, where Johannes Meserly was convicted, but then ended up serving hardly any time. And that's something that's top of mind for people right now. A lot of people are concerned that Chauvin get a reasonable sentence. So I just don't see that happening right now.
Yeah, Dr. Oleka.
Yeah, this is concerning to me. In Tammi Mack, you brought it up, all the hugs. And the reason why the Jean family did that is because their faith is important to them. And that is personal for me in the sense that my faith is also important to me. And I would really hate to see what was attempting to be an action of mercy, which would be incredibly painful for this family to go through that, to then be used by some attorney and some judges to allow this woman to get off for committing a crime that she knew was a crime, in my opinion, when it happened. You don't mistake all of those things at the same time and end up taking someone's life. So I think she should get the full sentence. She probably won't, which is unfortunate. And again, I am prayerful for that community if that happens, because there's probably going to be some protests and results because of that.
Yeah, I'm a little angry because everybody seems to get empathy except for Black people. I find that problematic. I find it problematic.
I have empathy for us.
And if ever too soon was too soon to be hugging on somebody, come on now.
Yeah, but some people said that was judicial misconduct, right? How are you actually impartial when you're over there hugging the perpetrator?
Good
You're
question.
not.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm waiting for someone to hug a Black person who has killed somebody. I'm sorry, am I doing my Black girl thing?
You were clapping.
I'm waiting for someone.
Now you want somebody to give him a hug. It's very confusing.
According to NBC News, the Department of Justice, speaking of Dominique, launched a civil rights investigation into Derek Chauvin's former workplace. The investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department will provide clarity on whether that department engages in patterns or practices that are unconstitutional or unlawful policing. United States Attorney General made the announcement on Wednesday morning, saying it will include a comprehensive review of the Minneapolis Police Department's policies, training, supervision, and use of force investigations. I think we can all answer that question just by the whole George Floyd shooting.
Philando Castile,
money on it.
Yeah, Philando Castile, the list goes on and on. They said Derek Chauvin had 22 infractions in his police record before George Floyd, 22. And he didn't, there was no repercussions for any of this stuff for him. 22 infractions, and you have a badge and a gun and power. You think they're going to let you burn the fries at McDonald's 22 times without getting fired?
Not at McDonald's. Not at McDonald's.
No, you burn them fries twice here.
McDonald's got your ass ain't fries. Now they might not fire you if the shake machine don't work, but them fries, they ain't messing with them fries.
No, they're not messing with them fries. Them potatoes are top notch, and they will fire your ass. But you can sit up here and have 22 infractions. There was a young lady who Chauvin kneeled on her neck, and she was like 99 pounds, and he did her the same way. So I'm like, you keep getting away with this stuff, and eventually it's going to turn into something like this because you feel like there are no consequences for your actions. And that's why we saw what we saw with him. So no, Minneapolis has a huge problem. Only person that got justice was the white lady from Australia. When the Somalian cop killed her, she got immediate justice fast. But other than that, nobody else in Minneapolis can get justice. And that's why I'm glad Merrick Garland is taking this up so he can do a thorough investigation.
But Dominique, is this just the police investigating the police? I mean, how many times have police departments been investigated? I mean, this is a joke.
But the thing about this, Tammy, is the feds. This is the Department of Justice. This isn't our usual internal department investigation. Just like with the Rodney King case in Los Angeles, we had to turn to the federal government to actually get justice because the jury here locally acquitted. And in this case, what I think is really interesting that hasn't been talked about that much is that Merrick Garland's Justice Department is also investigating another neck kneeling scenario of Derek Chauvin that happened in 2017. This was with a 14-year-old child whose mother called the police saying that that her son had attacked her. And then Chauvin comes to the scene, hits the kid with a flashlight 2 times to where the child needed stitches all the way down their face, and kneeled on their neck for 8 minutes, and then another 6 minutes on their back, almost exactly the same as George Floyd 3 years later. And they are now looking at possibly bringing charges against Chauvin for that case as well.
Let's take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Let's go to the chat room. Zodiac Palace. Thank you, Zodiac, our new soulmate, for chiming in. She was the aggressor. The cops saved a life, period. That's why, as a Black community, we will always be behind every race. Yeah, okay. A lot of white police officers don't live in or interact with the communities that they are called to protect. Too many officers are lying about their actual place of residence to get these jobs. I never thought that the police was like, why do you want a job in the area? I wouldn't even want to be a police officer in an area where I didn't know the people. But I guess that's why I'm not a police officer. I don't know. Levi says, I think the little sister that was killed was a foster child. So I don't want to go on thoughts and thinkings, Levi. So I'm gonna pull back from that a little bit. I'm gonna pull back from that a little bit. Kim Possible says, why is she, referring to Amber Geiger, even given a chance to appeal this? I think we're all trying to figure out why she even getting a chance to appeal this. And also, doesn't someone give her a Bible or something like a worker of the court too? Why did people give her so much mercy? That is, somebody did give her a Bible. Yeah, that was very interesting. Very, very interesting. Ursula O says, why did they not mention that George and Chauvin used to work at the same strip club? Saw the interview with the strip club owner. Oh, okay. She says she saw the interview with the strip club owner. I don't think it was necessary. Was it necessary?
They got the conviction, so apparently not.
Yeah, and they didn't work together. They worked on different nights with different promoters.
No. Yeah, but I saw that same interview with the strip club owner. She said they did like cross shifts and they knew each other.
Yeah. What I liked most that didn't happen in that trial is they didn't make it about race at all in any way. I don't even think they ever referred to him as a Black man. And I remember in the O.J. Simpson case, it was a really big deal as to whether the defense team was going to make the case about race or not. And some of, the defense lawyers quit because Johnny Cochran decided to make it about race. So that was a really big deal in the O.J. Simpson trial. Social media is divided over a passionate monologue given by CNN Chris Cuomo, who spoke out against police brutality and got real about what he thinks will need to happen before we see real change. So while speaking on the recent police shootings of Dante Wright and Adam Toledo, Cuomo said that white Americans won't care about police brutality until their children are killed. Here's what he said. You know what the answer is? You really do. You don't like it. I don't like it. It scares me. And shootings, gun laws, access to weapons. Oh, I know when it will change. Your kids start getting killed. White people's kids start getting killed. Those start piling up. What is going on with these police? That'll be you. That will be the majority because it's your people. Have we been waiting on somebody to say that? Did we expect it to be somebody white?
No, I didn't expect it to be somebody white, but I mean, I understand what he's saying, but I thought the gun laws were going to change after Sandy Hook, when all those little white kids got killed and nothing happened. So I see where he's going, but I don't know.
Dominique?
Yeah, I mean, we saw who was marching last summer too. It wasn't just Black people, it was Latinx people, Asian people, and white people too. I think people do care. I think they're getting more and more educated, and I think we are going to see change. It takes time. We're just at the very beginning of a new consciousness and a new way of reimagining public safety, but it is happening.
Well,
and one good thing though is also that people are finally not believing everything a cop says and everything a cop puts on a police report. These police reports are so fabricated for so long. And finally, the world is waking up to that. Just because you're a cop doesn't mean you're honest. They have this we're the good guys. Everybody else is the bad guys. And they sit up here lying on every daggone thing. They lie. Chauvin lied to his sergeant right after he killed George Floyd. They lie on the police reports all the time. And people are waking up to that.
Ooh, Alicia is on one tonight, but I ain't gonna lie. We got the go girl. That is a wrap on the Tammi Mac Late Show. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Ed, Dr. Oleka, and Alicia. Until Monday, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.